Teachers, welcome all of you. I am Sonali Bhattacharrya. I am located in Kolkata, and it's a hot and humid afternoon. And it's a nice break to be here doing a session with the rest of you. It's a break from all the housework, and I'm sure it's the same for you. It's a nice thing to be able to have a little bit of a me time and be able to also learn something in the process. So today, CENTA and Oxford University Press invites you to a session on how to structure the way
Sonali,
you
you might need to be a bit louder.
Okay.
Or nearer to the mic.
Okay, I'll come closer. Is this?
Yeah, this is better.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So today, what CENTA and Oxford University Press India is going to do for you is it's going to invite you to it's invited you to a session on how to structure the way you familiarize your learners with some of the building blocks for what is known as expository writing, which you all have to teach in middle school and senior school. So it's a good thing that this session is in the offing now. And the simple reason that both these organizations, CENTA and Oxford University Press, are keen to offer this session to you is because they are bound, both of these organizations, they are bound by a single interest, okay? And that is building teacher competency in core teaching skills. So since both these agencies and their missions are synergized, we see on the one hand, CENTA has a roadmap. It has a framework for mapping, measuring, and calibrating teacher proficiencies and their competencies. Oxford University Press, on the other hand, is also committed to continuous professional development for teachers, and they provide continuous and seamless training for pre-service and in-service teachers in the right direction, in emergent areas, and in all the areas that it deems fit for teachers who want to grow, who want to kind of reallocate their resources, or they want to upgrade themselves and to come at par with benchmarked standards. So that's one of the main reasons we are here today using this platform. So these are the two organizations that we are talking about who have given us teachers this wonderful opportunity to be sharing a platform like this. And as you can see here, I do work for Oxford University Press. I am a content developer and a freelance trainer for them. And there is this service where they make teacher training modules. These are called OTT modules, and these are bite-sized training modules. This is a service which started in 2016. It began with 77 modules, and now we have 21 modules. And these are asynchronous teacher training modules, which means you are flexi-timed, where you don't really have to synchronize with live sessions. So you can do these packages at your own convenience. And of course, you have to finish them within a stipulated time once you have registered, because you will be getting a certificate in the end, at the end of your completion. So a little more about these packages. They are based on methodology, pedagogy, and strategies which help to concretize the theoretical aspects that you have probably heard of or learned earlier, and you are already using them. So it helps to kind of internalize all the pedagogical inputs you have in you. And also there are classroom strategies which are offered to teachers as they take these training sessions, these online trainings. And there are expert videos. There are the SME videos, the subject matter expert videos who narrate the different concepts, and they elucidate and illustrate most of the concepts. There are a lot of explanations and demonstrations which help the teacher to kind of make their way through difficult concepts. Then again, there are exercises, practice activities, there are entire lesson plans which kind of stage you through, they show you this different stages through which you are expected to kind of move if you want to kind of implement certain pedagogical notions. So stages and structures are also explained. And eventually, once these lessons are done, once these trainings are done, there is some form of assessment. Uh, there is no formal grading as such, but then there is an assessment where they quiz you on the concepts. There are in-text reviews where they check at certain points whether you have understood and you are ready to apply these concepts to your classrooms. So this is the basic structure of what these training modules do. But right now, what we are concerned here with is one particular module which we thought would be useful for you. So it's a module which helps a teacher to understand and to guide a learner when he or he has to teach a learner how to design a thesis statement. Talking about is one such module where teachers are provided with inputs on how to help students design thesis statements and topic sentences, which we know are very important if learners are going to learn how to write expository texts. Now, the most important idea here is to be able to create a piece of text which is cogent and coherent. So this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to walk you through a couple of ideas and slides which will kind of help you to relook at some of the things we've always known. Okay, so here is an interesting question. I hope to get some responses from you on the chat box. Are your learners in the middle school able to clearly structure a paragraph with clear beginnings, body, and endings? So can I expect some responses? Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, anything else? Sometimes. No, not at all. Oh dear, not at all. Not everyone. Yes. So all the more reason why we should kind of take a look at some of the structured methods that one might use. Yes, so this gives me a fairly good idea as to what's going on. So sometimes not everyone. Okay, so thank you very much. So I think it's a good idea that we are doing this session today. And next, I'm going to ask you to look at another question. What do learners find more challenging? Okay, so there are three particular components when your students are expected to do expository writing. They have to do any of these three. In fact, all of them for that matter. Creating a thesis statement and topic sentences. Is this what they find more challenging? Or finding support or evidence? Or concluding? So which is the most challenging thing for them to do? Finding support and evidence, all three. Okay, creating a thesis statement, all. Finding support. Okay, so looks like we need to give our learners support in all three. So let's look at, okay, there's more rushing in. All of you seem to be in unison in your voices. Okay, so what we are looking at here now is our learners need support with all three areas. And these three are the critical areas of an expository piece of text. So let's first look at what exposition is. What is exposition? So I have these little snippets, little definitions over here. So exposition, as you can see, the important words here are explaining, illuminating, or exposing. Okay, so this is what we are talking about. It means really explaining, exposing, or expounding something. So that's what exposition is. Now, where would you expect to find this kind of an expository writing or expository text? You would expect them in essays. So it could be something which is done in schools or later on in the colleges, in the tertiary levels, in the workplace. So, propositions. Then you would find them in newspapers. You would find them in feature articles, in magazines, in instruction manuals, in textbooks, encyclopedias, etc. So these would be the kinds of texts that would have an expository mode of writing. The next thing we are looking at is frameworks. What are the different frameworks you would be expecting? So it could be descriptive. Expository writing could be narrative, basically narrative in structure, all right, or it could be exposing a cause with its effect, a comparison comprising of similarities and contrasts. It could be a definition followed by an example. It could be a problem and solution pair, or it could simply be a proposition which is looking for support, or it could be a sequential listing, or maybe a process. So all of these would require different kinds of frameworks, which is what your learners will be expected to learn right at the school level, which takes me to the next slide, which I feel is very important. Now, I would like some response from you. Okay, so why do you think we are here today with this particular module? So why is this competence in teaching methodology required? Why is it that we as teachers are required to know how to walk our learners through the right kind of methodology if we are to be successful in teaching them expository writing? So let me look at the chat box. Can't see any slide. Now, why is that? Am I not sharing it? Priyanka, are my slides visible?
Yeah, it's visible to me, Sonali. I can see the slide why is this competence in teaching methodology required with few points in it.
Good, good.
It is
Okay.
visible, yeah.
Fine. A good presentation work. Students know the answers but are not able to explain their views. Okay. So all the more reason for us to pitch in. Yes. So my question is, why is it that this competence is required in teachers? That is, you as teachers, me as a teacher, the need for us to know how to take these classes. Why? That is my question. All right. Yes, good. To develop critical thinking, to guide students through their writing skills. This is a very particular kind of writing skill. Just remember that it's not a descriptive essay that they're writing. It's not a letter that they're writing. It's an expository piece of text. A systematic approach. Good, I like that. As learning becomes a learning mode, yes, we have to transfer it into a mode. All right. So what I have here, I got some important inputs from you. So the first thing that I have here is it's crucial to learners' understanding of the subject. A learner will need this at all levels. So right at the beginning, it becomes the mainstay, It becomes the mainstay of college and higher education. If you know how to handle the expository text, it carries you right through your tertiary levels as well as your workplace. Okay, so that's the main reason why this expository text needs to be taken care of. Also, it's important to know the proper format and the technique. So you need a systematic approach. Some of you did mention it. It needs a very, very systematic approach when it's being taught, because the right formats and the techniques need to be used. And also, you did mention the fourth point. Yes, the fifth point, look at it, integrally related to critical thinking processes. So once a learner is walked through these steps in the right way, he learns how to be analytical, he learns how to be explanatory, which means expository, and he also learns how to be argumentative. He can kind of augment his arguments with the right kind of evidence. And the fourth point, just going back a little, learners need to be taught how to apply to various contexts. See, as he moves from his school to his college to his workplace environment, the context will keep changing, as a result of which he will need to apply the basic skills that you have taught him in school in his later stages. So that's the reason why this skill that you teach him at this stage needs to become a transferable skill. So that's reason enough for kind of focusing a little more on the expository kind of writing, because it's something that stays with them for life. It's a life skill, if you ask me. So coming to the next slide, we would like also to now look at some of the basic components of a paragraph, because that is the basic building block. So today I'm basically going to focus on the paragraph and its various components. That's where we begin. That's the ABC, the basic, the mortar with which we build our superstructures. So look at this, the three basic things that are expected to be there in a paragraph: the openings, the developers, and the terminators. So what are we talking about? The openings. So if you look at an expository text, there are two basic kinds of openings. They could be a structural opening or an interpretive opening. I'll just come to that. I'll give you an example to make it clearer. So that's one thing you'd have to remember. And the second thing you'd have to remember is there are different ways in which you can start. So you could have something of shock value that's going to grab the reader's attention. It could be a simple, strong statement. You could begin with a definition, which is going to be followed up with evidence. It could have some hardcore statistics. It could be an anecdote. It could even be a rhetorical question. So you would find lots of examples for each of these. Now, the developers are the scaffolds which support the basic idea, the main idea. So that's where you explain and you detail your main idea. So this developer, the development section, is really about giving support to your topic sentence or your thesis statement, and you need to interpret and give reasons for your interpretation. So these are the things that would be expected in the developers. And then there'd be the conclusion or the terminators, where there are three basic ways in which you can conclude an expository text. You could either reinstate the subject. Remember, this is serious writing, okay? It's not something which is cool and casual. So it needs some kind of a formal format, okay? So it could have a reinstating subject, or it could reinstate the reasons which you have just mentioned all along the paragraphs, or it could look to future action or state the future. So these are the basic tenets you would find in the conclusion or the terminator. I just mentioned earlier, see, in the openings, there could be structural openings and there could be interpretive openings. So I have two examples. Can you tell me now which looks like a structural opening and which one looks like an interpretive opening? Come on, let's use the chat box. Let me see some responses in the chat box. Yes? The first is structural. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? The second one is interpretive. What tells you that the first is structural?
Sonali, can you repeat the question? I think few people are asking for that again. If you can just repeat that.
Okay, here we go. See, in the previous slide, I mentioned, look at this, openings could be structural or they could be interpretive as far as expository texts are concerned. So I have two examples of these. One is a structural opening, one is an interpretive opening. Now you tell me, which one is structural and which one is interpretive? Going back to my chat box. Priyanka, if I use the presentation mode, I'm not able to see my chat box.
That's okay. You do it without the presentation mode, Sonali, so that you can see the chat responses
Right,
and it's
right.
still very clearly visible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happens here, like most of you, you are absolutely correct. There, because of the fact that it says there are three reasons, you can see that there's going to be a structure. Okay, so there's going to be three reasons, and then the writer is going to talk about reason one, reason two, and reason three. Okay. And on the other hand, the second one is generic. It talks about some basic amenities, so it's going to be more descriptive in nature. Good. So I like these responses. They're perfect. So once we are done with the openings, make sure that your learners are able to clearly demarcate, give them lots and lots of examples, help them to create a couple of examples. Okay, so this would help them to see the difference between the structural and the interpretive openings. Now, the next step that we are talking about is to identify the reader. So if you want the reader, you need to identify the reader for the simple reason that you need to create your text based on these factors. Okay, your purpose will be determined by the kind of audience you have. So I have a checklist over here. Look at the box on the left hand side. What is your purpose? To explain how to do something, or to give an opinion, or to tell a real story, or tell an imaginary story, which is usually not the case in expository writing. It's the last one, which is normally the case, to give information about a topic, or the first one, or the second one. Okay, this is how it goes. Once you are clear about who the audience is, then you move on to the other questions which help you to dig deeper into what the audience will expect of your text. So who is going to be reading this? What do they already know about my topic? You could also use the KWL chart, those of you who are familiar with it. The KWL chart is a useful way to figure out what is already known, what is still desired to be known, what has been already known. Okay, so look up the KWL chart. The second question here is, what do they already know about my topic? Third one is, what do I want them to know? This is important. What part of my topic would be of interest to them? And what would interest them the most? Because accordingly, you will need to prioritize the information that you share. The headier kind of information will have to go first, followed by the next important one. So once, I think this is a good organizer, it's a good framework which you could share with your learners. It would help them to kind of narrow the concept of who the audience uh, they want for the text. All right, so let's look at step 2 now. Now, what comes next is the keyword generation. When you are about to create a thesis statement, now that's important. The thesis statement is not the same as the topic sentence, okay? Let's get this very clear. Now, the thesis statement and the topic sentence, they are two different things. Would you like to respond? I would use my chat box then. Would you like to tell me what the difference is between the thesis statement and the topic sentence? Anybody like to try? Yes? Mm-hmm. Thesis is what you're going to prove, all right? Anybody else? Topic is just an, what was that? is more descriptive. Mhm. Is the main idea. Gives an overview. Yes, that's an important word. The thesis statement is, yes, sometimes it appears at the end of the paragraph. Not always. It can sometimes be there at the in sentence 2 as well. So what we are looking at, thank you everybody for those good inputs. So the thesis statement is the main roadmap. It's like the outline, okay? So it's an assertion that you're making about the topic, and it basically predicts how the topic will be delineated, how it's going to be developed. It just doesn't simply announce a topic, it says something about the topic as well. So it's something that could figure right at the beginning of the first paragraph or somewhere in the middle or maybe towards the end, but it is something that carries the weight of the entire text, okay, which may comprise of 5 and 6 paragraphs for all you know. But the thesis statement is the load-bearing statement. Okay? So it states the main idea or argument, and because it's an expository text, it's an assertive statement. It states your claims. So what's important in the thesis statement is that it should have certain very, very strong keywords. Okay, so this is what a thesis statement is. And the function of the thesis statement, as you can see in that box, the idea is to describe the scope and focus of the essay. So it keeps the reader on track because you've given him the roadmap through the thesis statement. It tells the reader what to expect from the essay. The topic sentence, on the other hand, is the lead sentence in each paragraph. Each paragraph has a topic sentence. It's very specific. It's going to tell you what the paragraph contains. It's more specific. But the thesis statement, it takes care of the whole text. All right. So teach your learners how to differentiate between the two. Now, I have given you some classroom strategies here regarding how you can translate all this theoretical stuff. There is a lot of theoretical stuff within that box. How do I take it to my classroom? Which is why we are doing this session. So one interesting way you can do it, maybe it may be a little difficult in classes maybe 6 and 7, but you could start, using it from classes 8 and 9. So think of a topic, okay? The topic that I have chosen for you. I can't give you a baby topic, right? So I'm giving you something which is relevant to you. So the topic that I have chosen for today is need for teacher training in online teaching. Need for teacher training in online teaching. So this is the topic that we are going to be, working with today. So this is the topic that we've thought of today. Okay, now you ask your learners to brainstorm on all the words that you associate with this topic. This is the topic you have got for today. So think of all the nouns and verbs you can associate with this particular topic. The first keyword that might come to my mind would be deliver. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm delivering, okay? So this is the first keyword that comes to my mind. The second keyword is, oh my God, all that classroom teaching now has to shift to a different mode. So this is the one which is the scary part. So the shifting is what gives me the jitters. So this is my second keyword. And then there is the third scary thing, which is the digital thing, because that's uppermost in my mind. Am I a little techie shy? In that case, the digital is also something that figures prominently in my mind. The fourth keyword here is training, because I will be expected to train my learners through this digital mode. So this is how you get your learners also to identify all the different keywords that kind of surf in their minds while they are, thinking about a topic. So once they have a web cluster of all these keywords, okay, tell them, look at this red point over here, circle 3 words that are critical to the topic. So this is where they have to zero in. focus on 3 words which are critical to this topic. All right. So once they have identified the 3 or 4 keywords, that's what's going to help them to design the thesis statement. See, after all these words are there in place, they are there in the mind map or the word map or the concept map, shift it to the thesis statement. Make sure that they are now in a position to create a thesis statement. It will have all the keywords which are uppermost in their minds. So, what is the thesis statement that has come out of this topic that we are expected to do? Teachers need to be trained in delivering online classes if they are to shift from classroom teaching to the digital mode. So this is my thesis statement. See, it was not so difficult, was it? Find the 3 or 4 keywords which relate to a particular topic, circle the 3 important ones, club them together, put them in a sentence, and there you go. Bingo, your thesis statement is ready. So it's as simple as that. Any questions so far? All right. Now, the next thing that you would want to remember is how to model, how to generate supporting evidence. Remember, the second component was once your thesis statement was ready, you needed to move on to creating supporting evidence. Now, one good way to create evidence to help your learners generate evidence is to begin with a prompt. Okay, so look at that first point up there. Use a prompt. When the whole nation is in lockdown, see, look at the prompt that I'm going to use. What was my topic? Remember the topic that we were using? Need for teacher training in online teaching. Okay, so now I need to give my learners a prompt. When the whole nation is in lockdown and learning cannot stop, what becomes a critical requirement? So I get all my learners to brainstorm and think about what is it that needs to be done? What becomes a critical requirement? So see, once the prompt is given, see the core of this set of concentric circles that I have. Okay, this is where you are going to model the focusing element. Help them to focus by giving them a prompt. Once this has been generated, get them to brainstorm. You do it along with them, do some hand holding. The teacher brainstorms the reasons for this choice. Okay, and then let the students complete their own circle maps. So use a framework like this. You could use an organizer like this to get them to think. So once this prompt is given, the topic will eventually emerge. Teachers need to be trained. If this is the situation, the next thing that needs to be done is teachers need to be trained in delivering online classes. So that's where the topic eventually comes from. Go back to the slide and see how this topic was created. Go back on reverse and see teachers need to be trained on delivering online classes. How did that happen? Because I made them work on a prompt. So once the topic has been generated by the students, it becomes easy to design a thesis statement. So here is your thesis statement. Teachers need to be trained in delivering online classes if they are to shift from the classroom teaching mode to the digital mode. Now, why exactly? Now we are talking about the supports. We come to the next stage. Now, a very important aspect of the next stage is to be able to see what is important and what is not important as evidence. I have given you a very simple little task, okay, which you could give your learners. So jumble up all kinds of evidence and make them kind of pick the ones which are relevant and important, and if they could be set to a priority task, prioritization, you could do it. So here, for instance, the topic sentences, Bowling is a perfect sport. Now, this is not related to the previous topic. Just remember that. Bowling is the perfect sport. We have 5 supporting ideas. A learner has to see which of these serve as supports and which of them are unrelated ideas. So can you quickly read them and tell me which is the one that is absolutely unnecessary, it's redundant in this case? Give me the numbers on the chat box. 4, is it redundant? 2 and 4? Mm-hmm. So 4, would you throw it right away? It provides a chance to interact with other team members if you're playing is a team in a team. 4, it need not necessarily be a redundant statement, but 2 definitely is. Yes, the rest of them are supporting statements. Very good. So this is one very simple way in which you can get your learners to kind of differentiate the important stuff and things which can be relegated to, you know, the unimportant zone. And then once they are able to see the difference, they will be in a position to create statements and evidence which would be supporting the main idea. Now, as you move on to the development stage, as you work at this stage with your learners, remember with expository writing, there are 3 basic areas, 3 basic kinds of development you would expect to have. Okay, so the first kind is the develop kind, the development kind. Okay, the second category is the define category. This is the kind of expository text you might also find. And also you might find a third category where there is basic elaboration of a simple statement. So I've just given you 3 small examples. So look at the first category, the develop kind, okay, the development kind. The develop kind of text means uh, where you exemplify the basic statement you have made. So look at this one. Take a paragraph of a story. This is an example, okay? The yellow box, the first yellow box. Take a paragraph of a story you've written and switch points of view and narrative distance. So you are giving somebody instructions. It's probably a person who does creative writing, okay? So he's a teacher of creative writing. So he's telling in his writing that you need to take a paragraph of a story you've written and then you have to switch your points of view and your narrative distance. This is the statement. Now that needs further exemplification. It needs more explanation because you are going to develop the point. So the next thing he says is, if you wrote it in the first person, try it in the third person. And if it's already in the third person, try a more omniscient narrative stance. Note what shifts in the story. So these are instructions. So you have shown development by giving them a first set of instructions. Look at the second category here, the define category. The best part of our home-like office lunch is the thali. Okay, so what on earth is a thali? So once you've given a term which is new to somebody who doesn't know what a thali is, you see the thali being illustrated and explained. A thali is a platter that comes with 2 cereal-based items, etc., etc. So you are defining and explaining a new term. The third category, elaborate with information. You are not elucidating something as in the first one, you are not developing it, but you are providing more information. The Indian military is inclusive of women officers. I need to know more. I need somebody to give me support. There needs to be evidence. So in terms of numbers, progress has been rapid, etc., etc. Then you get to see what happens in the armed forces, then what happens in BSF, how many women have been inducted in the CRPF. So there are a whole lot of details regarding this particular category of expository writing. So this is one easy way to get your learners to see the three basic kinds of expository writing frameworks. Okay. Uh, Once they have worked on these three basic categories, you could give them a checklist as well. Okay, let them check, or maybe get them into pairs or little groups, uh, exchange what they have worked on, and then ask them these questions. Look at the question here at the bottom. What type of thesis development does this sentence have? Okay, so the thesis development that it has is the elaboration kind. This text has an elaboration of info kind of framework. So these are the questions it needs to answer. Does it contain details that make the topic more interesting? Okay, so it has a plethora of information which is interesting. Does it help explain it further? Yes, it does. Elucidate further the point that it made. Does it have an organized structure? Remember the interpretative structure? So this is the interpretative structure. Does it give evidence? Yes, it has very strong evidence of this statement that was made. It has empirical evidence, okay? Now we come to the next stage, which is the conclusion. Once the development has been done, there is enough support for the topic sentence and the thesis statement. You have to round up your statement. So there are here 4 things that you need to show your learners. There's one way you can, the most common way is to restate the thesis. The second one is to emphasize the importance of the argument that was made, the second bubble. Okay, so you emphasize that. You don't repeat the same sentence. Of course, you need to reword it, but it must mean the same thing. You end with a quotation or a question that encourages further thought. Remember, in one of the earlier slides, I mentioned that it points towards a future time, a future action, the course of action, maybe a warning, maybe a prediction. Okay, so further thought is what we are looking at towards the end of your expository text. Includes a call to action for the reader. So these are some of the more common ways in which an expository text ends. Now, this little sample that I have for you here, you don't have to look at all of it, but just a few things that I'd like to point out. This is the last paragraph of a piece of text that was written. So you can see the writer is summing it up. Bringing together such a wide range of learning experiences, the essay remains an excellent medium of learning as well as of assessment. So this is something that obviously he's been talking about for the last 2 or 3 paragraphs. So this was his thesis statement, that the essay is an excellent medium through which our learners can learn. Fine. All right. But look at his reference devices. Bringing together such a wide range. See, such a wide, such. This word over here is an anaphoric reference. It's referring to all the other important things he has spoken about in his previous paragraphs. So this is, in fact, it's called a hook. Okay. This is called a hooking device. This is what hooks this paragraph to the previous paragraph. So teach your students how to use these hooks to link paragraphs. So these are linking devices and transitional devices. These could be anaphoric and cataphoric references if you are familiar with discourse analysis. So this is how they begin this conclusion. And then the conclusion carries on. It kind of summarizes all the other things that the different other paragraphs have mentioned. And finally, look at the last sentence. The essay may have a long history, but its relevance to the university learning experience continues. Look at the first sentence. Bringing together such a wide range of learning experiences, the essay remains an excellent medium. And here it says the essay may have a long history, Okay, but its relevance to university learning experience continues. So can you tell me, with this kind of an ending, it goes right back, the circle comes to a full, okay? So this ending here connects with this beginning here. So tell me, how does it end? Which bubble does it use? Which bubble does this line use? The essay may have a long history, but its relevance to the university learning experience continues. So which bubble are we referring to? The chat box again. Sorry. Hmm? Does it reinstate the thesis? Does it emphasize the importance of the argument made? It doesn't end with a quotation, but what does it do? It does emphasize the importance of the argument made, does it not? Emphasize. Great. It emphasizes action, and the continued action is what is required. So don't forget the essay. The essay is something that students will need all their lives, right into their university learning experiences. So it's what's going to give them transferable skills. Look what's been mentioned earlier on, because this writer has been talking about a whole lot of things, okay, which he has mentioned, he has summarized all down this way, okay. And then the last statement says that, see, it's not something which is going to fade away with time. The essay as a mode of expression and communication has a very long history, and it's going to stay. It has a very, very secure future. So this is how uh, you can conclude. Now, another thing that I was just thinking you could share with your learners is these graphic organizers, right? So these, I'm sure all of you are absolutely familiar with these, but it's an interesting thing to be able to map these graphic organizers to these different frameworks that we were talking about. Remember, the expository writing has these four basic structures. So it could be a sequence. I've just shown you four. There are a few more. So if you have a sequence, kind of an argument, not an argument, if it's a sequence structure, you would have to go for a flow line. If it's a compare and contrast, a Venn diagram is the ideal way in which you can get your learners to think out their ideas. If it's a cause and effect kind of a structure, you could try the fishbone graphic organizer, where the result, you begin with the result, you analyze, work your way backwards, you find your cause 1 and cause 2, cause 3 and cause 4, and then you detail up cause 1, detail up cause 2, etc. Okay, so the fishbone is good if you're using the cause and effect structure for your expository text. The problem and its solution has a very useful organizer. You can use this structure. You look at the cause, see what were the influences that led up to this cause, which became the cause and eventually led up to this effect. And this is where the problem comes from. And then you would find solutions. Okay, so this is a simpler one. So maybe, you know, a good task would be to map thought structures or semantic structures with the visual structures. A visual structure is always very, very helpful in giving your learners clarity in the logic or the coherence of the structure. And to go hand in hand with these movements, where you move from one paragraph to another paragraph, like I was saying, you need the transition hooks. You have a whole lot of the English language provides, even all our native languages also have a whole lot of transition devices with which we can, you know, effect these movements. Okay, so you can have addition. There are a whole lot of these are all available on the net. This is just to give you an idea as to the wide range of expressions we have when we need to make these movements, when we need to move from one idea to another. And eventually, once the structure is in place, the sentences are in place, you have the cause and effect, you have the topic sentence with their respective supports, and a conclusion which is going to clinch your argument, make them do a self-check. Okay, so these would be the basic statements which they could be looking at. Make them do it themselves, reflect on them. This would also give them reflection skills. Do all your sentences relate to the topic sentence, or are you able to see any redundancies there? Let them throw it out, okay? So this kind of revision always helps. The second one, does each sentence make logical sense in relation to the one before it? So the transition as you move from one sentence to another, is there a clear connection? Have you included enough evidence or examples to demonstrate your point? Okay, so are they there with the purpose? Is each sentence there with serving the purpose of an evidence? The fourth one, is it clear what each piece of evidence means and why you have included it? So there has to be a rationale behind using every single bit of evidence. Does all the evidence fit together and tell a coherent story? So this is, once they are able to rationalize on all of these, they would be able to uh, correct their and reflect on the text they have written themselves. Of course, this would need to be simplified if you were doing it at a lower level. Make these simpler. At least they would be able to do the first three. The first three would, if you kind of simplify the sentences a little more, especially the second and the third, I think it would be comprehensible for your learners. They would be able to reflect. And my experience tells me, my training experience tells me that learners they find it very, very challenging and enjoyable when they are given reflection tasks. So, these self-check questions and checklists, that's something they enjoy. And then once they do this, if you make them share it with a partner and talk about what they have reflected on, it's a very good activity. So take a look at this very quick picture, a graphic that I have put together to sum up everything that I've been talking about. So if we are talking about a good structure for an expository text, we were looking at these four bubbles. Needs planning. Even the way you teach needs planning. Organization, it needs to have clear writing, and it has to be reader friendly as well. Um, Even if it's and if it comes close to an academic piece of writing, it has to have an ease of flow. Now, the thesis statement that we were talking about, it gives us the scope and the direction. It is the big idea. The thesis statement is the big idea. It needs to be a single statement, concise, and it's arguable, which means it can go deeper. It has the possibility, the potential of being developed. Okay. Like some of you mentioned, it is often the last sentence in the first paragraph, but then I did mention also that it could be positioned elsewhere in the first paragraph as well. Um, these are the mechanics, the good sentences. It's assumed that the punctuation, grammar, spellings, the lack of ambiguity, this is what would give it clarity. Okay, and this is an interesting structure which uh, tells us the way a thesis statement would look. It comes towards the end of the first paragraph, and then the second paragraph would begin with some element of the thesis statement, because that would be the hook that will keep it linked together. So this is the summary of what we spoke about. And since we are talking about classroom strategies, we are looking at some tasks that you would want to give to your learners. You could maybe jumble up and ask them to jumble up paragraphs, ask them to label which looks like an introductory paragraph, which looks like a thesis statement, etc. Okay, so this would get them thinking critically. You could ask them to underline the main ideas, look for the supporting the supports. Okay, summarize the information in each paragraph, ask them to make a list of all the supporting details. You could ask them to locate all the specific information within the paragraphs, summarize the topic, number the paragraph. So these would be different kinds of classroom transactional tasks which you could set for your learners. Now, just to run you through what CENTA does. Now, what is important here, how it connects to what we initially stated was that you need to upgrade, we all need to upgrade our skills at different points, our competencies at different points in our careers. And it is really fortunate that today digitally a lot of training is available to all of us. So CENTA and Oxford University Press have come forward, and they are helping teachers. They are giving them access to a lot of training. So what CENTA does, it maps the competencies that teachers have if they really are interested in internationally benchmarking themselves. Okay, so their measurement, the mapping, the measuring, and the calibration happens under uh, the four basic categories. So what they measure, what CENTA measures, is a teacher's technical competencies, core competencies, professional competencies, and mindset. So these are the four areas in which CENTA would help you to benchmark yourself. And the way they have laid it out, it's very interesting. It's very, very structured. Look at the way this looks confusing because of the way I have overlaid a lot of little bits of graphics. But let me just quickly walk you through this. So if CENTA is going to be mapping your proficiencies in these four areas, I'm going to take one small area, one little segment, the technical segment. So this is where they've written it out. This I have taken. See, there is a website. There is a link uh, in the previous slide. This is where these standards are available. Okay, this is available there. But this is how Oxford and CENTA have tied up together. It's very interesting. They have joined hands in helping the teaching fraternity, and this is a wonderful contribution where the training modules that Oxford has been designing have actually been mapped to some of the competency development strategies, rubrics that CENTA uses. So say for instance, if CENTA is going to be measuring and calibrating the competencies you have in these areas, say for instance your expertise in the subject matter, your pedagogical content, or the way you plan for your instructions, the way you design your assessments. Okay, so all of these are further subclassified into smaller heads, and they have been given module names. Okay, so say for instance you are looking at the pedagogical content knowledge that a particular teacher has. Okay, so what is this teacher's level when it comes to pedagogical methods or assessment methods, or is the way he understands sequence and linkages? So see, this is the way in which CENTA does the measurements. It kind of assesses the competency level of the teacher. And these blocks over here show how the Oxford University Press modules, they are mapped to the competency framework that CENTA has designed. Okay, so one particular module, for instance, I think this is the one on expository writing, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the one where all these aspects, which are also available in the CENTA framework, the two are mapped and they work in tandem, so that Once the training has been done, um, the teacher would be conversant, her competency will have uh, got a fresher impetus, maybe some new inputs, maybe, and would help her in um, certain specific ways when it comes to mapping the competency. So this is how it works. The two work hand in hand, and this is a boon and a blessing for the teaching fraternity. Uh, this is the way in which CENTA has set out the levels. Okay, so if we are looking at the knowledge, the subject expertise of uh, the teacher who wants her levels ascertained. So T1.1 is the knowledge level. Okay, so there are three levels here: the CENTA level 1 certification, level 2 certification, and level 3. So these are the descriptors which will help you to understand where you stand. Okay, so I'm sure CENTA will be able to give you a better understanding of these. And just a few words on the Oxford, the OTT training modules. This, like I told you, it started in 2016, and we have moved from 7 modules to 21 modules today. So the teachers have the option of um, choosing any of those 7 or any of those 14. Um, and they help in improving the pedagogical knowledge, the strategies, and the methodology and understanding of the teachers in these different aspects. So also lately in 2019, an impact study was conducted on how the teachers were receiving the online teacher training modules, and a very, very warm response was received from the teaching fraternity. And we do hope that the online teacher training modules will be able to help the teachers go a long way in building their competencies and building their proficiencies, and help them in understanding what the new emergent areas are in which they need to further develop, because every year a whole new group, new cluster of modules are being released in different pedagogical areas, and we do hope the teachers will be able to benefit from them. These are the responses. 96% of the teachers may have said that these modules have been able to give them an in-depth exposure to a range of pedagogies and methodologies. 95 of the people interviewed, they were able to say, they said that it helped to build on their existing academic knowledge, etc., etc. So these are interesting, very encouraging figures. These are some of the testimonies that we have got from teachers across this country. Finally, these are the modules that are currently available, that are there in the portal, the Oxford Online Teacher Training portal. So do drop in, take a look at some of these. Today, what we did, we were working on this. I just gave you a peek into what this module contains. I do hope you will you will have found this interesting. There is a lot more there in the portal. Make uh, do try and make good use of them. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sonali, for such a wonderful session. As you would be seeing from the comments, that teachers really appreciated this session. And I hope all of you who attended the session would have found it useful and would be able to implement it in your classroom for the benefit of the students. Thanks a lot again, Sonali, and thanks to all of you for attending the session and being so participative in sharing your views and thoughts on the various questions which Sonali was posing along the way. Thanks a lot,
Thank you
and
so much, all of
see
you.
you all in next webinar. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.